Coming up on No Pulp, some major shakeup in the college basketball standings. A possible set of Final Four matchups took place over the weekend. We'll tell you who triumphed in the top four tilts.
Plus, I have won a lot of juicers, so many that I can't even count, but something that happened to me last time has never happened before. Max had me get swept. Now I want revenge against John Boccio. We'll have that.
We're also playing our role of doctors, bracketologists, and your host of this edition of No Pulp, which starts right now.
Lane Kiffin is the same old scumbag who takes off for the next best thing again.
I have a man crush, and it's Caleb Wilson, Max. I love this guy.
Solano's in trouble, hit as he throws, hangs it up towards the end zone, and it's intercepted! Virginia has done it!
You can never doubt UConn. You can never doubt Gino Auriemma at the end of the day.
I feel like you could have blocked a 6'4 linebacker coming at you while you
Goal or no, Holloman looks the clock, half court for the win! Oh!
When you got the best player in the country, you can really do anything.
Nobody expected DJ Lagway to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country because last year he wasn't good either.
First time, how are we feeling, Jake?
I'm excited to win the juicer.
A century of futility is forgotten. The Indiana Hoosiers are the kings of college football.
Nothing like seeing my king, Kurt Signetti, to start another edition of No Pulp. And I'm sure if you watched this, you would have had to Google us, Hudson, Ridley, and Max Gifford. Nice to be with you for this college basketball edition of the show. And what a weekend it was.
Oh, yeah.
The top four teams going at it. And it started out with number 3 Duke getting the upset over number 1 Michigan, 68-63. Certainly a defensive battle at that. I love that we got this matchup in February, and Duke just proved to be the better team down the stretch.
We need more of this, regardless of who won that game or how it ended up going. I would have said the same thing. We needed more of that game. Duke played its game, a defensive style of basketball, and put a stranglehold on Michigan. They locked down Elliot Cadeau in specific. Elliot Cadeau shot 12% from the field, 1 of 8.
That's not going to cut it.
And 1 of 6 from 3. He stunk, and Duke took full advantage. Boozer ended with 18 and 7. This was such a fun game. The fact that, you can also have it on a big stage in Washington, D.C. I thought everything about this game was fun, and it ended up being probably the best show of what ESPN can do by having these games late in the conference schedule, just pulling a random non-conference game. I think we're going to see more of that in the future because this game was so good.
And how about the fact that we were at Cameron Indoor Stadium just a week ago?
We were.
On Monday. We saw Duke treat Syracuse like they were a mid-major team just to show Michigan that they can beat the best team in the entire country, just as Duke did in this one. And if you ask John Shire, the head coach of Duke, well, he's pretty happy this game was played in February as well.
Okay, well, that was a game that didn't feel like that was played in February. That felt like a March or April game. Obviously, we have a ton of respect for Michigan, their staff, how good they are. And I thought it was just a big-time game where our guys were ready to compete at a high level.
I do not like giving credit to John Shire one bit, but it was smart of him to schedule a game like this. And my goodness, he's done such a good job in just a few seasons with these Blue Devils.
He's awesome. And you really can't say how good he is because we don't know how much of it is still remnants of Coach K and how much of it is John Shire, but it is undeniable. 89 wins in his first 3 seasons. That's tied for most of any coach in that span, and only in his first 3 seasons. What he's doing at Duke is special. They are the best team in the country right now. I don't have any issue saying that. They beat the team everybody says is the best team in the country, and they became the best team in the country. And that is how it works. And I think right now, because it's not just their defense that's good. They do have an offense that is top 10 in efficiency. They're both top 10 in offense and defense. I like the way this team plays together. There are no weak links, and then they have arguably the biggest strength in the country and one of the best players in the country, a guy in Cam Boozer who may win National Player of the Year.
Well, the thing that I was most impressed with was the fact that Duke beat Illinois at their own game.
Yeah.
Dominating in the paint. Michigan. They dominated Michigan in the paint and dominated them on the boards. And everyone has been saying Michigan has a chance to win because of their size. and Duke simply beat them. Cam Boozer was the biggest proponent of that.
I think Cam Boozer, and also giving credit where credit is due to Patrick Gungba as well, because he went straight up against Adai Mara. My biggest worry for Duke going into this game, Mara at 7'3", Gungba at 6'10", and that sometimes might even be pushing it. That is a big height difference to give up at the 5, and yet he got Mara into foul trouble, got him 4 quick-ish fouls, and that kind of really tilted the game. So Max, what I saw out of Duke in this game was a team that is ready to go. You know another team, though, that's ready to go, Max?
Who?
It is everybody else right now in the ACC, because everybody is fully ready to go. If you take a look at this next schedule that's upcoming for Duke, UVA is the next team up on that list, and boy, after Notre Dame and NC State, you got North Carolina. Caleb Wilson not playing. Duke probably looking for some revenge at home. Max, I think Duke may blow the doors off of North Carolina in that game.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they do, because you've hit such a high point in this season by beating the #1 team. I do think this was a good test for Michigan, because it's good to have a game where maybe you're tested a little, because Michigan's been blowing out all these other teams they've been playing, and Duke's the first team to really show the world that Michigan's not unstoppable, and really I think no team's been unstoppable in college basketball this year.
It's certainly not. You heard John Shire say that's a matchup that could happen in March and potentially April. You know another that could happen in March or maybe even April? Arizona against Houston. This time, Arizona goes on the road and takes down Houston in the Lone Star State, 73-66. Max, I did not expect Houston to lose at home, and Arizona had some pretty unconventional ways of standing out in this game to end up taking over Houston. They beat them at their own game of defense.
And that was a depleted Arizona team without your guy, Koa Pete.
Yeah, Koa Pete did not play in that game, still dealing with a lower leg injury, and they still got past it. I was impressed at spreading the ball a little bit around more than they had in the past. But what else impressed me about Arizona was they can sometimes be, yes, scoring by committee, but Anthony Del Orso, a guy who hadn't played well in the last couple games, all of a sudden he's broken out, back-to-back big-time games, 22 points in this game from Del Orso, the Australian shooter from straight away. What I don't love about his game is that sometimes if he's off, he just continues to keep shooting. But when he's on, he fires, Max.
Yeah, let's put another point on the barbie, if you will, for him. Del Orso did incredible off the bench for this Arizona squad against a Houston team, again, that prides itself on its defense. Little shocking that both these games had featured offenses that are so prolific, and it was defense that ended up winning both of these games for these teams.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier how Duke is one of 3 teams in the country that both their offense and defense are top 10. Michigan is that way, and Houston is that way, but you wouldn't know it by watching the Houston offense in that game. Mainly also because Emmanuel Sharp was awful. I thought Kingston Flemings had his moments. He was here and there, but I don't always feel the best about him. Sharp was horrendous. 18% from the floor. Yikes. And that's your senior leader. That is your guy you have to lean on in those games.
And Houston's pretty much the exact opposite of Michigan in the fact that they do not have that big in the paint to really pride themselves on. So they have to go through their guards. We've talked about the inconsistency with Kingston Flemings a couple of times, but you have to expect Emmanuel Sharp to be better in those moments. You have to expect that you'd hit better than 18% from the field.
Yeah, he
simply
went 2 for
has
11.
to be better. No matter how good this Houston defense is, the guards have to be better. You have to hit a lot more shots, especially when it comes to winning 4, 5, or 6 games in March.
Yeah, it also doesn't help when you play in a Big 12 that this year and every year is so stacked, but this year in particular, because if Houston makes one slip up, they could continue to slide down those rankings. 3 top 5 teams in the Big 12 right now in Arizona, Houston, and Iowa State. And you can't forget Kansas, who arguably has one of the best players in the country, not the best, but one of the best, in Darren Peterson. A Texas Tech team that is pretty dang good and is built for March, and then a BYU team with the best player in the country in AJ DeBonta. You have all of that packed so tightly together, and the margin for error is so thin.
The fact that there's 6 top 20 teams right next to each other is absolutely absurd, and you've also got teams behind them that could still potentially make an NCAA tournament push.
I like UCF I
do
like
as well.
UCF to make a push.
I like Cincinnati maybe even a little. I know that their record isn't favorable,
Yeah.
but if you get some wins down the stretch,
They're
we'll talk
getting
about
hot.
it a little more in this show. I really do think that the Bearcats have a chance to maybe make a Cinderella run in March. We're talking Cinderellas on the other side when we come back. It's juicer time. John Boccio makes his return to the juicer against Hudson Ridley, looking to come back from a sweep. We'll talk to you on the other side. I'm vibing to that music
I like
for
that.
this
I was a
new juicer intro. Although I think it should be a little more ominous with this music because these two have entered the ring, Hudson Ridley and John Boccio, and with me, Max Gifford, as the judge. I have not seen these answers. I have just looked at the questions very recently, so there is no bias here, no Assembly Hall over Cameron Indoor this go around. And we will start with Hudson. Who is the #1 pick in the NBA draft this year?
This one is so easy.
This is your
for me.
wheelhouse.
This is my wheelhouse, which is perfect. It's so easy for me, and I'm not going to overthink it. It's AJ DeBonsa. The reason I like AJ DeBonsa is the fact that everything that AJ DeBonsa does well is the biggest strength of everybody else. He has everything combined, right? Darren Peterson, his biggest strength, shot making and creation. AJ DeBonsa does that on a similar level, but he's much bigger and he plays every game. Boozer, his biggest strength is his solid fundamentals. AJ DeBonsa does that on the same level, but brings a lot more athleticism. Williams, his biggest strength is defensive intensity and athleticism. AJ DeBonsa is the same level of athlete and brings that same defensive intensity. He just happens to average 25 points per game. Everything about AJ DeBonsa makes me think that there's only one player in last year's class that would go above him, and it'd be Cooper Fleck, and that's it.
All right, he's got DeBonsa. Who do you got?
Look, there's a reason that you said AJ DeBonsa does it at a very similar level to Darren Peterson, and that's because I think he's the #1 overall pick in this NBA draft. If you were to ask me a week ago who it would have been, if you were to ask anybody a week ago who it would have been, everyone would have gone with Darren Peterson, and I understand the concerns. Is he going to play? Is he in the team huddles?
That's a kind of a big concern if he'll play basketball.
I understand that there is the concerns there, but you don't draw Kobe Bryant comparisons for no reason. He may have taken a poor approach to college basketball to start, but the NBA is a completely different level, and this is the most polished scorer that you're going to see out there. Averages nearly 20 a game, almost 50% from the field. I mean, this guy is a better scorer than anyone out there just purely in terms of take it, make it basketball.
Do you know who the last guy to draw Kobe Bryant comparisons was? Ben McLemore. Do you know who that is, Max?
I do not.
Exactly. There
Well,
we go.
he was a top 3 pick in the NBA draft and might not have
I'll
panned
tell you
out, but he
what,
was there.
Darren Peterson has looked a little bit like Joel Embiid because he's been sitting out so much.
He was the
this
#1
guy.
overall pick.
So that's why I give AJ DeBonsa the first overall point. It's mainly because of the injury concerns I have, even though that seems to be, I guess that seems to be what, all these NBA players do nowadays, sitting out. So I guess he's already embracing that figure. Question number 2, we go back to Hudson. We just talked about teams that could make a run potentially, but who's the team that's most likely to fall apart in March?
I think it's a team that has no defense and a coach that's starting to kind of build a history of this. It's Arkansas and John Calipari. And last year, I did like the run that Arkansas made in the tournament. They got a couple of close wins in there, but they had so much experience and a great defense, which was kind of unordinary for Calipari in that year. This year, they have 0 defense, 302nd in Division I in defense per game. And then the other problem is John Calipari in his last 3 years at Kentucky eliminated in the round of 64, round of 32, round of 64. He's got young guys this year and no defense. I still think he's got some mojo left, but not enough of a fastball to keep going.
Well,
Your response?
I think it's pretty simple. It's kind of tough for teams to win when you lose your best player, and that's the case for Texas Tech. JT Toppin, who averaged 20 and 10, goes down with a torn ACL. There's no way that this Texas Tech team rebounds. He just leaves so much to be desired for the rest of this Red Raiders squad. I mean, this team already was pretty solid in quad one, but nothing absolutely insane. But JT Toppin, you lose him, you basically lose the whole offense. He was the focal point of everything. Now you truly lack a big presence down low. This Texas Tech squad just does not look the same without its best player. And I think it's a pretty simple answer as to why you fall apart in March if you don't have the guy that can carry the load.
And I think it's been a consistency in March that a lot of teams that have done well do really well on defense. Texas Tech is one of those. I think Arkansas's offense might stall out, similar to an Alabama type of team. So I give Hudson Ridley 2 more points. Up 3-0 on John Boccio in the juicer. You have a chance to tie things here. You're not out of it yet. Don't worry. I promise this isn't redemption because I swept Hudson last go around. What's your best player performance of the past week?
Okay, this one should be a gimme in theory. It's got to be a player on a team that was just mentioned, Darius Acuff of Arkansas. And that is because, well, the guy had 49 points in a double overtime against Alabama. And you may say, oh, well, he had 2 extra frames. Don't worry. He had almost 40 in regulation, the most by an Arkansas player ever in an SEC game, not to mention the second most by any player in D1 this year. Shot 60% from the field, added 5 boards and 5 assists. Plus, he hit the shot to send it to overtime and hit all the free throws to send it to double overtime. The only knock on Darius Acuff is he couldn't get the win, but at the end of the day, his performance was outstanding, and he added 6 triples on top of it. I don't see how that is not the best performance, not just this week, but maybe all season.
Well, I'm about to show you why it's not the best performance of not just the season, but the week, because Mississippi State's Josh Hubbard was a man on a mission this week. He didn't need overtime or double overtime. He scored 46 points in 39 minutes with 10 threes to beat Auburn basically all by himself, and barked over in the corner, "This is why you don't leave state," at players that had left Auburn, or rather Mississippi State, to go to Auburn. 10 three-pointers was the Mississippi State school record. He was dotting them up. An Auburn team that already has a lot to play for, so they were playing hard and physical. He cut through it and put up 46 points in 39 minutes. And hey, unlike Acuff, he got the win.
Okay, so let's mention those 2 stats once again. You said it was a school record?
Yes.
And what was the stat about the SEC?
Most by an Arkansas player in an SEC game ever.
Yeah, I give that to John. That's pretty impressive. In a conference game ever? They've been in the SEC for a very long time.
Mississippi State, that would also be the most 3-pointers in a game by a Mississippi State player ever, because it's the most ever.
All right, well, it doesn't matter because John's tied you 3 apiece. And we talked about teams that may fall apart. Who's your Cinderella team this March, John?
Well, there's a lot of teams that may fit the glass shoe. But I think the one that reigns above all are the ones that have the biggest brains too, and that's because it's Yale, one of the best teams in the nation at shooting the 3. In fact, the best in the nation in terms of 3-point percentage. 3 of its top 5 scorers are upperclassmen. You need experience in March. Plus,
you like the Bulldogs? You like the Bulldogs?
Hot shooter, so crumble at the end. High Point is a team with a really high motor and intensity that just beats you and wears you down. 10-game win streak. That's second longest in the country right now behind Miami, Ohio. That's always a sneaky Cinderella team. They'll be eating at their on-campus steakhouse when they make a Cinderella run.
Ooh, I do love me some steak. I don't know if Yale's even the best team in the Ivy right now.
They absolutely are.
I don't know. I think there's some teams that could make more of a run over them. So I give the point to Hudson Ridley, and I give him the win. That was a really, really good fight out of you, John. I give the point to Hyde Point. Let's take a look at our juicer standings. John Boccio just falling short. Hudson Ridley still
I'm probably eliminated after that there.
To be found. So,
I'm in.
How about that?
I'm in.
You're still in the juicy standings. So no matter the loss, you still have a chance to be in the tournament.
I lost to you, and I'm still in over you.
That is insane.
I didn't expect that. You might not expect what's coming next here on No Pulp, because even though Hudson and I may not be the smartest two, we're putting on our doctor's coats. We're playing some March MD on the other side of No Pulp.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
They always said I wouldn't make it to med school. That's Max Gifford. I'm Hudson Ridley. You've got your lab coat on, your blue scrubs here. You've got mine as well, because it's time to play a little game of doctor. We've got our March MD, 4 teams here. They all have illnesses, Max. We need to diagnose them and then give them their cure. We'll start with you. You've got Clemson. That cute tiger right there. I think yellow eyes is a sign of leprosy. What are you giving this tiger as the diagnosis here?
Well, it seems like you're chronically sick all the time, and MD isn't my Twitter handle if you just saw, so I feel like I'm the best to diagnose this Tigers team, and it's going to come from the mouth of their head coach, Brad Browning, because he said this team got a taste of reality. 4 straight losses for the Tigers up to this point, and that's because they've gone against a gauntlet over this last stretch. They've had to play teams like Duke. They played a tough Mike Young Virginia Tech team. And this is a Clemson team that had really dominated, had won 19 of their previous 20 games before ACC play began. And it was important for Clemson to find a way to win a lot of these ACC games. They were around the top of the standings, hovering around there with the Dukes of the world. Now, after 4 straight losses, they're right back in the middle of the pack. It's right now tough to tell if they're going to make the tournament. However, I think the cure for them, they still have some tough opponents ahead, but they just need a cupcake.
Yeah.
They need some cupcakes, if you will. One of those could come in the ACC tournament. They have one, I would call, winnable game left, or at least must-win game left. That comes against Georgia Tech. You still have Louisville and North Carolina on the docket. If you lose those, I don't think that goes against your resume too much. But if you win, it's certainly a boost, and I think it certainly secures your spot in the NCAA tournament. If you go 1-2 and you lose in the first round of the ACC tournament, it might be tough for the Tigers.
Yeah, it may be. Also, they had a pretty difficult non-conference schedule as well, so you combine everything together, they really haven't had a chance at cupcakes all season long, so that's some difficulty there for Clemson. A team who's also had a tough road this year, Max, it's been Kentucky. The Wildcats probably not what everybody expected.
This is not as cute of a cat.
I would agree that's not as cute of a cat, but he's cooler and he's got the headband.
No leprosy on this one.
No leprosy on this tiger here. But what I do think the issue with Kentucky is all the injuries right now. They're so thin, their players are getting gassed. Max, they have asthma right now, and they need an inhaler. Now, that's not my cure for them, but the reason they have this asthma is the injuries have been piling up, and right now there's no production from the bench. Only 5 points per game from most of their bench scorers. And look, when you lose guys, those are great in their starting lineup, right? That's fantastic for, not in their starting lineup, rather, on their bench. These are fine producers on their bench. And that's about all you have right there in Garrison Johnson. And then, obviously, Trent Noah, I do like, but he just has not had the sample size and production. But you lose Jaden Quayton. You lose Jalen Lowe, which was a massive injury. And now you don't have either of those two guys. you just got to, at this point, tough it out. That's my cure for them. There's really no way to make this any better. And I do think that, Mark Pope has a team that can, accelerate and push past, and that's fine. I don't think they're good enough to tough it out and make a run to, say, the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8, but they can win a game in the tournament. Mark Pope has done that with BYU teams in the past. I don't see any reason why he couldn't cycle through and do it with Kentucky. It just makes it harder game by game.
I do think we were just talking a lot about those prolific SEC offenses with Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Mississippi State. We saw great performances out of those guys, and you looked at that bench production for Kentucky. That's just not going to cut it in a conference that has been priding itself on offense this season, especially down the road. SEC tournament, NCAA tournament time, you need a lot more points to win those games.
You've got another SEC team that's kind of in a bad way right now.
Yep, that's right.
What do we think about Vanderbilt here?
Well, he's got, actually he has two eyes. I thought for a second that he only had one. I got confused for a second. He's got a thermometer in his mouth. We're taking his temperature. I'm not sure your temperature tells you what quite the diagnosis is, because this Commodore, he's bipolar.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately, there's no cure for bipolar disease. I looked it up.
He's lost his railroad monopoly.
But the unfortunate thing about Vanderbilt is after their scorching hot start, they've been the epitome of inconsistency, or consistency if you want to say. This is their January and February. Win, 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 loss, 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 win, 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 loss, win, win, loss, loss.
Oof.
No 3-game win streak at any point except for the start of that month. So I'm having a hard time understanding when you're going to finally cement yourself as that, top tier team in the SEC, especially after the great start you had. You had a great chance to do it, but with that, since they're bipolar, I said there was no disease, but I think they just need to stop for fuel, Hudson. They need to stop for fuel. I know it's sort of a racing term, if you will, but Vanderbilt's had to race in a lot of these games. They played in a ton of close contests. Look at some of these. And they're 3-4 with games decided by 5 points or fewer. That includes the overtime games as well. They've had trouble down the stretch in these games. Most recently in that Tennessee contest, really had a tough time with the Volunteers down the stretch.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to believe this Vanderbilt team is going to win in March if they can't refuel, get refreshed, hit the reset button, if you will, because you have to be recharged for March. Every single one of those games is close. You're not going to be able to blow out these teams.
Yeah, they did great at the beginning of the year, too, and they ran out of gas. I would agree with that as well. Stop for fuel. I think this is the perfect way to describe it. We've got one more team that's sick. We're bringing in another big cat to the office. It's the BYU Cougar. Aww. Look at him. He's got a little Band-Aid on top of his head. He's not feeling so well. So the biggest issue with BYU...
Got no soul in his eyes.
Yeah, he's no soul. The biggest issue with BYU is the fact that arguably their second best player in Richie Saunders tore his ACL. So as a result, the whole team tears their ACL. Injury bug is what we're calling it here.
Yep.
My diagnosis would be torn ACL. Now, the cure for this is an A.J. DeBonsa-sized Band-Aid. They need to fill that hole
They
with
make Band-Aids that big?
They make Band-Aids that are 6'9" and uber athletic. A.J. DeBonsa is what I just said a couple minutes ago, the best player in the country pretty clearly and the #1 overall pick. But can he do enough to shoulder the load for BYU? Because Richie Saunders, that's still a near 20-point per game scorer that you're losing out there on the floor every night. And they only lost him a week ago. So now where does BYU go? I really am unsure about them. I don't think AJ DeBonsa will really be enough to get it done for BYU, but at least having him and paying him, $8 million is still a little bit of solace for BYU at this point.
This Cougar's got a fever.
Certainly does. All righty.
And the cure is more AJ DeBonsa.
These teams may or may not make the tournament. We'll tell you what teams are making the tournament on the other side, though. We've got a lot of conferences to look at, so let's not waste any time. No Pulp returns after this.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3.
you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
You've heard of Joey brackets, but have you heard of Giffy brackets and Huddy brackets?
Oh, I love it.
Well, we're going to show you right now. We're back on No Pulp. Max Gifford and Hudson Ridley. We're finding out if we're the real bracketologists here.
I think we are.
We're going to go conference by conference here and tell you who is making the NCAA tournament out of these conferences. We'll start with you, Hudson. We've mentioned the SEC a lot this show so far. I mentioned how good these offenses are. Are there any of these guys that maybe you're omitting, or which of these teams do you like? How many of them are getting it?
I got 10 SEC teams making the tournament. Give me Florida, Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, A&M, Vandy, Mizzou nearly, but for me right now, Mizzou is out. Kentucky, Texas, surprisingly, Georgia, Auburn, surprisingly, which I don't like, but a couple of good wins for Auburn. Still has Auburn in this conversation. Those are my 10 teams that I have making it. I don't love that I have Auburn in here. But the SEC, even if, in my opinion, they're not the best conference in college basketball, and I would argue they may not even be the second best conference in college basketball, because I do like the top heaviness of the ACC, even then, and the Big 12, of course. But even then, you cannot argue that the tournament just loves the SEC. And no matter what the SEC does, because there is so much money in the conference, they will throw all of those teams in there. And hey, Georgia's another team that I kind of have on the edge. If you look at Texas, though, 71% to get in. I don't know about Texas. I don't know.
Here's the thing, though. Look at the projected seed. I see 3 5s in there, 5-12 matchups. Those are always toss-ups. You got a couple 7-10 matchups in there, 2 8-9s.
But no 1s, no 2s.
That's why I feel like the SEC might become almost the Big Ten of old, where the Big Ten used to, get out in the tournament over the last decade or so pretty early. I think that has a chance to be the SEC this year.
I think they flipped.
Flip-flop, if you will.
Now, Max, with your ACC squads here, which ones do you have on their way?
Yeah, people have said the ACC is back in a sense. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think it's a very top-heavy conference. But I still have 7 teams coming out of the ACC that starts at the top. Duke, Virginia, no surprises. Miami, NC State have made some late-season pushes. A little bit of inconsistency with North Carolina and Louisville, but I do like them. And then I think SMU has enough quality victories to get in. Probably the biggest omission, Clemson.
I was going to say.
Not being in. I'm worried about the Tigers with the 4 straight losses, because if they continue to struggle, I don't know if they can get out of this hole come ACC tournament time. Then you look at the Cal Golden Bears, the Virginia Tech Hokies, 2 teams that have been on the precipice of glory a couple times. Cal got off to that amazing start to the season, and Virginia Tech has shown some games when they can be competitive with these top-tier teams, but they just can't close out games. And unfortunately, I think both Cal and Virginia Tech are going to fall on the short end, which isn't too surprising considering they're on the first 4 out or the next 4 out in a majority of these Joe Lunardi bracketologies at the moment. Clemson's probably my hottest take of the teams not making it. I'll be interested to see how things shape out come Selection Sunday.
You know who I think of your wall actually could make it that you don't have in? I think Virginia Tech could actually win a couple of games in the ACC tournament. I think they're built to win a few games in the ACC tournament.
Not Syracuse?
If they do so. Yeah, believe it or not Syracuse.
Pulp on no pulp.
The Orange, out. In my book, but
and
VT,
Adrian Autry.
And Adrian Autry, but I do think VT at this point could make a run.
All right, so we've talked to middling, maybe bottom tier conferences of the Power 4 at least. Let's get to some of those top tier conferences. And Hudson, you've got the Big Ten. How many teams are coming out?
The best conference in college basketball.
Whoa.
If I could put them all in except for Oregon, Penn State, Northwestern, Maryland, except for this row down here, I would put them all in. So you know what, Max? You know what I did? I basically put them all in. I've got 10 teams from the Big Ten here going. USC was a bit of a hot take
to not have them in. I think Musselman has a chance to push his team over the edge, but obviously the top row has to make it. Michigan, Illinois, Michigan State, Nebraska,
I feel like
Purdue,
these first 6 are so much are
they're locked.
very much
Purdue
locked.
has to make it. Wisconsin making a push into the top 25 now. UCLA just had a big win over Illinois. UCLA is building towards that point. And then Iowa. Right now, I do really like Iowa. That is a gritty, scrappy team that can win games. And then, of course, once it gets down to the crapshoot of the end, they will put big brands in. These are 2 big brands, Max, they're putting in. For your Big 12 picks, Max, who do you have?
Yeah, there's a lot of good teams in this conference.
Yeah.
It's also a conference that's similarly very top-heavy. I don't have 10 teams in, but I got 9 teams in from the Big 12. And you can see pretty much why. It's a lot of top tier. But then I've got some teams sneaking in. Yeah, that's right. You see it at the bottom. 15-12, Cincinnati is sneaking into the NCAA tournament. Currently projected out of the tournament in addition to TCU. But I have a feeling with the way that this conference has been shaping up over the last stretch and with how close they all are in the net rankings, that I have a strong feeling that they could potentially make a push, especially in that Big 12 tournament. You've got teams like Arizona, Iowa State, Houston, Kansas. There's no doubt that those teams are already going to be in. Who knows? Maybe Darren Peterson just sits out until the NCAA tournament, and that gives a team like Cincinnati a chance to play Kansas, or TCU a chance to play Kansas. Now, arguably, that'll probably be more of the bottom tier teams playing Kansas, but in the later rounds, could potentially be an opportunity if they knock off a team early on.
That would have to save Wes Miller's job, you would think. Right now, it's in a lot of contention at Cincinnati. I don't know if I agree with you on that, but they are playing really well as of late. They are playing really well.
Anything can happen in March. Only a couple days away.
Anything can happen in March, Max. Wow, a lot of teams getting into the tournament, and we've still got a lot more to talk about on No Pulp, Max. We really do. Your final word ever on the other side, plus our plays of the week, a little bit of Mick Cronin. We'll talk to you in just a minute.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a little more time with you on No Pulp. Max Gifford, Hudson, Ridley. Time for our Big 3 segment. It only makes sense that the top 4 teams went at it this weekend, but who do you think are the best 3 teams in the country? I've got my Big 3 right here, and a little bit of a shocker. I've got the 2 teams that lost this weekend as my top 2, Michigan and Houston, and then another hot take at the end. I really like what I've seen out of the Florida Gators. Look, I have talked about it a multitude of times in this show. Size is what wins you NCAA tournament games. You saw it a couple years ago with UConn and Purdue. That's the reason they took on each other in the national championship. The 2 biggest teams in college basketball are the Michigan Wolverines and the Florida Gators at the Power 4 conference level. And then Houston prides itself on his defense. I think that Kelvin Sampson defense, he's shown that he can get to that Final Four in that national championship. I think losing some of these games down the stretch gets him over the hump. That's why I have these 3 as my best 3 teams in the country.
It's crazy because to me, I don't have 2 of these teams in here, and it feels like to me, my top 3 is an absolute given. Duke, which I don't know how Max does not have Duke as number 1. Michigan
D1 hater.
And Iowa State. Now, I've seen all 3 of these teams play with my own eyes. All 3 of them are
unbelievably good and complete teams. This is why I have my top 3 the way they are, because each one of these teams is fully complete. They have the guard play to compete in March. I would say Iowa State has the best guard play of these 3 teams. I don't always love Elliot
but Iowa
Cadeau
State's
or Caleb
lost
Foster.
a couple of games that have been very questionable.
They have, but I do think they are complete. They have good wing shooters. I think Milan Momcilovic is the most underrated 3 in the entire nation. Taman Lipsey is a fantastic point guard. Together, Iowa State, when they play their best basketball, I don't think there's a team in the country that can beat them, including Michigan or Duke. It's just, will they play their best basketball at the right time? Michigan, people have compared them to some of the greatest teams in college basketball history. I would kind of disagree, but they're good. And then Duke is number 1.
But what if the Blue Devils peak too early?
This is true.
That is a question to consider. Now it's time for you to consider our plays of the week here on No Pulp. We'll stay in hoops for mine, and we go to the bottom of the barrel in college basketball. How about 1-26 Mississippi Valley State? Down to the wire, a takeaway at the buzzer, and then Michael James with a buzzer-beating layup. Hudson, the only other win for Mississippi Valley State this season against Mississippi College for women.
Were they playing women out on the court?
No, they were not playing women out on the court. But that was their only other win, their second win for the Delta Devils. And what a way to end it as well. Not only getting the last second point, but getting the takeaway and then the buzzer beater.
I love HBCU basketball, so that's perfect. Max, for my play of the week this week, I also have a buzzer-beating layup.
Perfect.
But let's just watch as Donovan Dent goes through everybody, coast to coast, up and under, off the rim, and in.
Was that in 2x speed?
Yeah, it must have been, because Donovan Dent, coast to coast in 3 seconds, takes it all the way down and wins the game for UCLA. A 95-94 overtime win. A hard screen, a teeth-rattling one on Wagler at that, and Donovan Dent wins it.
Well, that's a pretty good way to lead into our final words here on No Pulp, because many of the headlines in college basketball over the last week have been centered around UCLA head coach Mick Cronin, and deservedly so. Because if ejecting your own player out of a game wasn't enough, that surprisingly wasn't the biggest story afterwards.
What was your thought in the student section chanting Booker's name?
I could give a rat's about the other team's student section.
I just meant the overall the way that you
I would like to give you a kudos for the worst question I've ever been asked.
Did you like
You should take it.
the preparation of the...
Do you really think I care about the other team's
No, I don't.
student
I don't
section?
think you care about the other.
Are you raising your voice at me?
No, I'm just.
Yeah, you are.
talking to
Yeah, you are. Come on, dude.
No reason.
Come on, dude. Yes, you were. Everybody's standing here listening to you.
All right, I know I'm laughing, but look, as a fellow journalist, that may have been over the line, even if the question was pretty terrible. But guess what? Mick Cronin is good for college basketball. I'm sorry. You don't get the nickname Cronin the Barbarian by being Mr. Nice Guy all the time. Sure, he has his flaws. Yeah, he's a bit of a bully. Maybe he drags his players when the cameras are on too much. But guess what? You can make an X-rated film with the amount of foul language that came out of Coach K's locker room and huddles. Also, Bob Knight, my fellow Hoosier, literally choked a kid. And those are men we categorize as some of the best in the sport to ever do it. Sports are better when we have villains, and Mick Cronin plays the role to perfection. Like him or hate him, he's a good coach, and he will continue to do it for a long time.
Max, my final word was nearly, we need less people like Mick Cronin, but I'm glad you're taking this perspective on a guy I hate. There's a whodunit mystery right now in Southern California. On Monday afternoon, USC receiver Jacoby Lane posted a tweet that said, "This kid stole my cleats and a bunch of other stuff from the SC locker room. And y'all kids out there, just know this is simply unacceptable." Lane included a screenshot of an Instagram post from Brawley Tui Tupo, a 3-star wide receiver from California. In the picture, you can see all kinds of USC-branded socks, gloves, and cleats. Of course, the internet lights this kid up, which, valid. Jacoby Lane himself said it was Tui Tupo. Case closed. Well, not really. You see, hours after that, another tweet gets made from an NCAA transfer portal source claiming it wasn't actually Tui Tupo, but a different offensive lineman who took it and gave it to the recruit later.
But unlike the first story, we don't actually know what happened. So right now, there's a big-time mystery in Southern California.
My goodness, I mean, there needs to be a manhunt out there with this kind of story. This is crazy.
I know, that's front page manhunt news.
Yeah, maybe not quite as Mick Cronin, though.
No, not really. Hey, Max, it's been a pleasure doing this show with you.
Well, it's been more of a pleasure doing it with you, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us on this edition of No Pulp. For Hudson Ridley, I'm Max Gifford saying so long for now. Thanks for joining us.